Okay, so as we just went over and reviewed, today's sloka is Nainam Chindanti Sastrani Nainam Dati Pavakaha Na Chainam Kledayantyapo Na Soshayati Marutaha. And the core meaning of this sloka basically is weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn the soul, water cannot burn the soul, and the wind cannot dry the soul. So Krishna now shifts from philosophy to complete imagery. In the previous verses, he explained what the soul is. He explained that the soul is eternal, that the soul is unborn, the soul is indestructible, the soul does not go through the 6 stages of material existence, and the soul is like a traveler who is changing garments or changing clothes. Now he explains something equally important. There is no force in the material nature capable of doing any damage to the soul. So, to make this unmistakably clear, Krishna chooses the 4 classical elements recognized in Indian philosophy, which is earth, which is also represented by weapons acting on physical matter basically. There's fire, there's water, and there's air. So if you think about it, these are also the These are also the zodiac sign type thing. I don't know what it's called. Just we'll stick to that. And together, they're supposed to symbolize every kind of material force that acts upon this physical and material world that we live in. So, he's saying that everything in the material world can affect the body and nothing in the material world can affect the soul. So, Nainam Tindanti Sastrani, meaning no weapon can cut this. On a battlefield, this is the first fear. Arrows pierce, swords slice, and spears wound. People are gonna die, people fall to the ground, all of that. Weapons separate one thing into thousands of pieces. The soul has no parts. Because it has no parts, it cannot be divided. So, anything that can be cut must have edges. Think about early classes in your early years when you would have to, maybe you had to cut a piece of paper into hearts for Valentine's Day. The reason a piece of paper can be cut is because it has edges. Anything that can be broken must have pieces. The self has neither. So think of space. Can you cut space with the sword? The sword might move through space if it can even get through there, but space itself, it's unharmed. Krishna is pointing to something even subtler than space. The second part of this verse says, fire cannot burn it. So, nainam dahati pavaka. That means fire cannot burn it. So, fire can transform things. It is a chemical change. If you were to burn wood, the wood is not just wood anymore. It's complete pure ashes. It also consumes. It transforms. It consumes. Food into energy, paper into smoke. Fire always requires something material to act upon. The soul, obviously, as you can guess, the soul provides no fuel. Nothing within it can be reduced or basically destroyed or consumed. This also has a very symbolic message because fire often represents anger, hatred, destruction, intense suffering. Because think about it, when you think that somebody is mad, maybe you might represent anger with fire. And that is something else here because Krishna, he quietly reminds Arjun, even the fiercest fires of life cannot burn your true nature. Emotions may overwhelm the mind, pain may exhaust the body, but the deepest self, it always remains untouched. The third part of this sloka, water cannot wet it. Nachainam gledayantyapo, meaning water cannot moisten it. So at first glance, this sounds very unnatural. Not unnatural, but unusual. Why specifically mention water? What is the thing with water? Because if you think about it, water changes things. Water can soften things, water can erode things, water can make things dissolve. Given enough time, rivers can carve mountains. Rain rots wood. Moisture weakens structures. All of that happens just with water. So water here, Krishna is using water here as an example to represent gradual change through continuous contact. If water continuously soaks wood, then the wood is going to end up rotting. If water continuously hits like a structure, the structure is going to get weakened because the water is consistently hitting it. So Krishna says the soul cannot absorb corruption. It cannot decay. It cannot be spiritually waterlogged by the changing conditions of the world. Even years of hardship cannot die or cannot alter the essential nature here. Another thing, the fourth part of this verse, na soshayati maruta, meaning the wind cannot dry it. Wind removes moisture. Think about it. If something is wet, if something is wet, you let it out to dry. Think about like a washing machine. When you wash clothes, you put it into a washing machine. When you're done, you go ahead and take it out and you put it in a dryer. What does the dryer do? It uses man-made wind to dry the clothes. So wind gets rid of moisture. Wind can also wither leaves. Wind can dry rivers. Wind can erode cliffs. Wind is like fully invisible, yet it's so powerful. It's more powerful than we would even know, first of all. And here, wind represents or symbolizes the subtle forces of time, exhaustion, aging, and depletion. The body eventually becomes tired. Relationships change. The mind becomes overwhelmed. Memories fade. But throughout all of that, the self does not change. The self cannot be worn down. And that is what Krishna has been telling us over and over and over again. And that is what Krishna is trying to tell us with this verse as well. Nothing can erode the soul, and nothing can exhaust the soul's existence. Because if you truly think about it, the soul isn't the thing that is doing all of the actions that you guys do. No, it's not the soul, it's the mind. That's the thing. And that's why nothing can exhaust the soul. So if you've noticed, these are the four elements all together. And also, notice the progression. Water is known to wither things down. Wind is known to dry waters up. Weapons are known to cut things up or cut it into pieces. And what else is there? Fire is known to burn. So, weapons, I already said this, it represents sudden violence. Fire represents destruction. Water represents gradual deterioration. And wind represents slow erosion over time. Krishna here, he's going like above and beyond. He's covering all possibilities here just to get this into our head. Whether destruction is immediate, intense, gradual, literally almost invisible, the answer remains the same. The soul is untouched. The soul is like fully unbothered. The soul does not care. This is not like merely poetic repetition, but it's completeness. Krishna is showing us how complete the soul already is. Krishna is systematically removing every imaginable fear about the fate of the self, and that is why Krishna is going above and beyond by giving us all possible possibilities or all possible examples just to get this drilled into our mind. So after all of that, let's look at some interpretations. Sankaracharya, he sees this as it demonstrates that the self is entirely beyond material properties, as we've previously learned in the 7th chapter, Prakriti. Cutting, burning, wetting, and drying, they all require a physical object. Now that's the difference. The soul, it's not physical. Therefore, none of these actions can apply to the soul. That's why the soul cannot be wet. That's why the soul cannot be burned. That's why weapons cannot cut the soul. That's why wind cannot dry the soul. Because the soul is not physical. The soul is not technically a thing. The soul is not a noun. So, Sankaracharya, he emphasizes that Krishna is not merely just describing an indestructible object, but he's describing something that belongs to a completely different category of existence. The soul is consciousness itself. Material forces operate only within the material realm, but even within the material realm, they never reach the soul. Now, Ramanujacharya agrees. He agrees that the soul is untouched by material forces. However, this is the difference. He emphasizes that this indestructibility, sorry, I needed to sound that out, belongs to the individual soul as created and sustained by God. The soul's permanence, is not self-generated. It is part of its eternal nature under the care of the divine. Thus, while bodies are vulnerable to these four elements, the soul remains forever secure. Once again, because the soul is not a physical object, it is not a thing. This reassurance is supposed to strengthen Arjun's confidence that the bodily death cannot destroy the person they are within. So, once again, it's imagine time. Close your eyes and imagine the sun reflected in 1,000 bowls of water. One bowl is shaken, the water spills out of another bowl. Another bowl breaks, and the reflections disappear. But just because the reflections have disappeared, does that mean that the sun is completely gone? Has the sun disappeared? Has the sun basically removed itself from material existence? No, not at all. Only the reflecting medium changed. Similarly, bodies can be injured, minds can suffer, lives can change dramatically just in literally a millisecond. You never truly know. But just because all of that can happen does not mean that the soul can be destroyed or that the soul can be touched. No, the soul remains untouched and will forever remain untouched. Krishna is inviting Arjuna to distinguish between the reflection and the light, because there is a clear difference, and that is exactly what Krishna is trying to teach us. He's trying to teach us the difference between the reflection and the light. Now, if I were to summarize this verse, I would say that this expands Krishna's teaching on the soul's indestructibility, how I always have trouble with that word, and it declares that no material force can harm the soul. Now, this is a lesson that has been taught in previous verses as well, and he keeps repeating that because he needs us to know this, okay? This is important. Weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it. And together, these four elements, they represent every single form of physical change there is. As I said earlier, Krishna went definitely above and beyond to give us all of these possibilities that could possibly happen. So, Sankaracharya, he explains that these actions only apply to material objects, and therefore that is why the soul cannot be cut, the soul cannot be withered down, the soul cannot be burned, the soul cannot be dry, all that, we've already talked about that. And similarly, Ramanujacharya, he teaches that the individual soul is eternally preserved by its divine nature, and it remains untouched even when the body is subject to death or injury or getting overwhelmed, all of that. And through these vivid images, Krishna reassures Arjuna, and he says, despite the body belonging to the changing world of matter, the soul exists beyond that, because the soul cannot get harmed and the soul cannot be destroyed in any singular way. Thank you.